r/AskReddit. What is the strangest mystery that is still unsolved? An unknown group of people broke into an FBI building and no one has found out who they are. But the best part of the story is, they did it by leaving a sticky note that said, "Do not lock the door tonight," and it worked. Edit. To everyone asking how they left the note, they just stuck the note to the front door. Probably should specified. Edit 2. I'm an approved member of r/what's the rule now. Edit 3. I know it's been solved. I heard about it 8 years ago and never learned that it was solved. This is my favorite weird and barely known one. Back in 2013, an unknown group assaulted a power substation in California. By all appearances it was pretty sophisticated. Scouted firing positions, all casings wiped of prints. They targeted transformers so they'd take time to overheat before triggering any alarms. Also knew exactly when the police would arrive. No suspect or motive to this day. They also cut some fiber optic cables in a vault nearby. Conspiracy types think it was a dry run by Russia or possibly China to see how effective an attack like that might be. Who was Perseus? From 1943 to 1946, the Soviet Union had a high-level spy in the Manhattan Project. Codenamed Perseus, this spy was a scientist at the White Sands missile testing site in NM and the main research facilities in Los Alamos. Perseus saw pretty much the entire project start to finish, giving the Russians everything they needed to get to work on their own bomb. The fact that they were able to do so within 4 years of the end of WWII, when their nations were still devastated, is proof positive that Perseus helped a great deal. And to top it all off, Perseus was never caught or positively identified. What on earth happened to the Trump family? So it's this Australian family who owned a berry farm. Somehow Mr. and Mrs. Trump and their 3 grown kids developed the belief that they weren't safe and they needed to flee their farm without cell phones or anything traceable, credit cards, etc. It sounds like the oldest son wasn't sold on whatever it was that led them to flee. He brought his phone, but eventually it got tossed from the car. He ended up bailing first and taking a train home. From there the rest of the family slowly separated and suffered various degrees of emotional breaks. The 2 girls stole a car. Somehow they got separated and one made it home, but the other was found on the floor in the backseat of some guy's car in a catatonic state. He spotted her after he started down the road. Eventually the parents were found wandering around aimlessly. Fortunately they were all okay physically, but WTF happened? Was someone actually after them? Were they delusional? As far as I know the family hasn't released any updates. Just read about this through the article you shared. How have all those involved, the family, police, medical professionals, remained so mum on what happened? I get the impression they really don't understand themselves. I don't know what the legitimacy of Farley Dukes is, but it seems reasonable that they all got wrapped up in the paranoia. Like if someone is creeped out, and then you get creeped out too. And then all this stuff happens really fast, and after you're just like, wait, what the fuck? I'd bet money it was the laundry machine. Hear me out. When I was a kid, I was in my basement one day playing with toys, or on the Wii or something. My slightly younger sister's best friend was also there. We started talking, then I suddenly got the feeling that I was being watched, and that whatever was watching was really bad. It was like the most intense feeling of paranoia ever. I'd never felt that way before, and to add to the strangeness, it was bright out. Our basement was most comforting part of the house, and there were even windows, so I could see the sun from where I was standing, so it wasn't just out of fear of the dark or unknown. The only sounds I could hear other than us were those of the washer and dryer in our basement, but they'd stopped making noise just a little bit ago. But this super intense paranoia came on, and even at around 8 or 9 years old I knew it was unfounded and not normal. That was probably just imagining it. So to confirm that it was just my imagination, I turned to my sister's best friend who was standing next to me looking around the room, and I asked, "Do you get the feeling that something really bad is about to happen?" And she surprisingly said, "Actually, yes. Do you think we should run?" "Yeah." And we both sprinted upstairs, and then the feeling was gone. Neither of us could explain what happened, but we both knew there was something weird in that moment. Out of morbid curiosity we both went back down a few minutes later and everything was fine. It took until about 2 years ago, on Reddit, ironically, for me to understand what happened. Apparently, some washing machines, especially older ones, can occasionally make very loud sounds at frequencies just at the edge human range of hearing. Your brain interprets that weirdly as something is happening a lot, but I don't know what it is, and it causes extreme paranoia when you hear it. So overall a very innocent answer to what was probably the creepiest feeling ever. The whereabouts of the last Gestapo chief Heinrich Müller. The last verified sighting of him was in Berlin roughly 3 days before it fell. He had stated he knew full well what the Russians did to prisoners, and he had no intentions of being captured. As chief of the Gestapo he more than likely had access to foreign documents as well as ways to replicate them. Both the CIA and the KGB spent time looking for him, but no trace has ever been found. South America, probably. That was the Nazi failsafe. Disappear and blend into the country. They think they found a chain of forts in Venezuela, used by Nazi officials. Edit. Gang, I may have been thinking Argentina. Either way, I heard about this on a History Channel special. Hunting Hitler or something like that. As far as I know it's somewhat speculative, but a possibility. There are a few that bug me. The Sodder children. Their house burned down in the middle of the night. Several of the kids were presumed dead, but their bodies were never found in the debris and it never burned hot enough to cremate them. It started to look extremely suspicious and the parents, until their deaths, believed that they had been taken for some reason. Many years down the line they did receive a photo and cryptic note from someone claiming to be their son, but it was never authenticated. Link. The boy in the box. A deceased little boy, found beaten, recently shaved of his hair, and abandoned in the box for a bassinet that he was way too old for. The photos and reconstructions of him released to the public in the desperate hope of identifying him are haunting. Link. The St. Louis Jane Doe, a little girl found in an abandoned house, decapitated and bound at the hands. They have no dental records or facial reconstruction to go from. The case has led nowhere. She's just nameless, lost to time. Link. Tree State Crematory. A devastating case of a man called back from his college football career to take over his father's business when the father fell ill. Over time people started noticing bodies and body parts on the grounds, just hanging around. When someone finally took the reports seriously they found that he'd been piling bodies up randomly all over the property, often when it would have been much easier to cremate them instead of hauling them around to where they were dumped. The guy gave families canisters of cement dust instead of ashes. The mystery on this one is why. The guy never gave up the answer to what happened there and will only insist that there are no answers. His lawyer theorized he had mercury poisoning from cremating amalgam fillings, but that doesn't really explain why you would dump a body instead of cremating it when the latter takes less effort. Link. The West Memphis 3 case. All of the satanic panic mess obscured so much that will probably go unanswered now. A bloody man covered in mud stumbled into a Bojangles the night those little boys went missing. Cops barely investigated that incident and lost the blood evidence they did collect regarding it. What was going on with John Mark Byers and Terry Hobbs, two dads of two of those kids, both turning up with evidence and acting at different points like they may have been involved. Link. Where the ever-living crap are all the severed human feet coming from? Link. Lars Mittank. A German tourist on vacation in Bulgaria. He got into a fight and the medical complications kept him from going home on a flight with his friends. Staying behind. It looks like his mental state unraveled completely over the course of a few days, increasing paranoia eventually culminating in his complete disappearance into a field of sunflowers. What happened to Brian Schaffer? This happened in my hometown. This med student went to a bar with friends and then fully disappeared off the face of the earth. Edit. The podcast True Crime Garage has an incredible series on this case. The hosts are both from Columbus and around Brian's age. They talk through the whole case in depth, and they also have a few guests that they talk with as well. The Overtown Bridge. It's a bridge in Scotland where dogs always unexplainably jump off. It's very strange and nobody knows why they do this. Dogs who survived reportedly walked back up and jumped off again. They even had to put up a warning sign to keep your dog on a leash and to watch them. A dog psychologist says maybe it's because of certain scents or animals down below, but most people have disagreed this theory. It's fucking weird. As someone from Chicago who loves /r/unresolved mysteries, I would say the maximum headroom broadcast signal intrusion, and I don't think we will ever find out who was behind it. It's been over 30 years, and we still have no idea who was behind that incredibly bizarre hijack. There was a thread a while ago of someone that thought they had figured it out that seemed very possible, but it was updated, and they were ruled out as suspects. Here is the infamous video for those that have never seen it. That guy who ran away from the airport hopped the fence and was never seen again. Just read the wiki article on him. My money would be firmly on him having copped a subdural hematoma in the assault. Shame his friends didn't stay. They'd almost certainly have picked that something wasn't right, taken him back to hospital, and he'd have got a caught and then probably surgery to relieve it. For those wondering how it ties together, subdurals are slow bleeds of veins inside your head, often from a traumatic injury, that can keep bleeding, and slowly over days, can build enough pressure to cause pretty nasty symptoms. And paranoia/hallucination/personality changes are definitely some of them. Source: doctor, seen quite a few, but only ever with more strokey symptoms, and never the batshit mad symptoms. The Tamim Shud case, also known as the mystery of the Somerton Man, is an unsolved case of an unidentified man found dead at 6:30 am, the 1st of December 1948, on the Somerton Park beach, just south of Adelaide, South Australia. The case is named after the Persian phrase Tamim Shud, meaning ended or finished, which was printed on a scrap of paper found months later in the fob pocket of the man's trousers. The scrap had been torn from the final page of a copy of Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, authored by 12th century poet Omar Khayyam. Tamim was misspelt as Taman in many early reports, and this error has often been repeated, leading to confusion about the name in the media.